All right, there's some really good news. I think it's Bosch has come out this weekend and said that they have developed a virus test that can actually confirm in 2.5 hours whether or not somebody has the virus or not. And it's ready to be mass produced and shipped all over the world. And we've got to test more people. We've got to be able to figure out if people have antibodies so they can go back to work. We have to be able to see if somebody's a carrier so they don't go to work. We're trying to now balance as we've hit the doubling rate last Wednesday in New York. Now the deaths are doubling every day, and that number is going up quickly. We have to be able to figure out how to save lives and save the economy. Well, I got a note in from a friend of mine now, Dr. Robert Epstein, and he is the guy who, was editor-in-chief of Psychology Today, senior research psychologist at the American Institute for Behavioral Research, Technology, yada, yada, contributing editor for Scientific American Mind, Cambridge Center for Behavioral Studies in Massachusetts. He's the guy who's been working on the high-tech stealing of elections. He voted for Hillary Clinton, but saw what tech did and said, this is obscene, how many numbers they changed in favor of Hillary Clinton. He's been working on that. Well, on Friday, he published an article, How to Stop the Virus Now, and I called him right away and said, is this possible? So he's on now to give the answer. Is it possible? Hey, Doc, how are you?
Well, nervous like everyone else is, but yes, I have a certain optimism at this point about what can be done. That's true.
Okay, so tell us, first of all, let's start with the university in, where was it? In Italy, the little Italian town of, I think it's VO? VO?
That's right, Bo. And by the way, this article of mine was published last Wednesday, not Friday. It was published on Wednesday in both Medium and the Epoch Times, which is a newspaper that President Trump likes a lot. So I'm hoping, that will help actually get this plan into motion. In the city of Vo, which has about 3,300 people, that's where there was the first death of coronavirus in Italy. That meant something special to the Italian people. So researchers at the University of Padua in Italy, which has been around since the year 1222, believe it or not, they went into this little town and they tested everyone. So try to remember that hashtag test everyone, because that's what they did. They tested everyone. And of course, no one's ever done that before, but because they tested everyone, they knew who was carrying the virus and who wasn't. And of course, a lot of people carrying the virus were asymptomatic. That's how the virus spread so fast. That's why it's so dangerous. And they just separated out the people who were carrying the virus from the people who weren't. And guess what happened? Instantly, transmission stopped. And the paranoia stopped in that town, because right now, everyone looks at everyone and thinks they have the virus. But now, most of the people in the town did not have it, and they were freed. And if we did this in our country nationwide, and we have the capability to do it, if we tested everyone, what would happen is the carriers would self-isolate. We would help them a little bit, but most of them would just self-isolate anyway, just like if you get the flu. And the rest of us, the 333 million people right now who have been basically imprisoned in our bedrooms, we would be set free. The restaurants, the theaters, the stadiums could start functioning immediately. And that would be the end of the crisis. And by the way, because this virus gets killed off by our immune systems, those people who are self-isolating, some of them would get sick. Of course, a few of them would die. A lot of them would need treatment. But the point is, within 3 or 4 weeks, the virus would be dead. It would have no hosts. It would disappear.
Okay, so you said this is the part of the article that really intrigued me. Could we really test 329 million men, women, and children in the U.S.? Sounds like a tall order, but it's not much difference than taking the census. And only bodily fluid is needed, a small amount of nasal mucus, yes, snot. But because of the economies of scale, the per unit cost of 300 million tests would likely be less than a dime. But even if taking administrative costs and the usual government inefficiencies into account, the total cost of each test would turn out to be $20. That's $6.5 billion price tag. It would still be $600 million less than we'd be spending this year alone on the census. So you're saying that this is not a big number, and big numbers don't seem to scare us anymore anyway, but it can be done. Now, do we have this kind of test available that could be produced quickly enough?
The answer to that is almost. In other words, if President Trump, and that's what I'm hoping will happen, I'm in touch with people who know him, I'm in touch with people at the White House, I'm in touch with people on Pence's coronavirus team. If President Trump used the power that he has to say, do it, then what we would end up with, literally in a matter of days, a couple of weeks at the most, we would end up with a kind of a little device, a throwaway device like those throwaway pregnancy tests that could be distributed literally by the millions very, very rapidly, which will allow us at home just to shove it up our nose and wait a few minutes, and you get a plus sign. That means you're carrying. You get a minus sign. It means you're not carrying. And yes, that could be developed and mass-produced practically overnight if the president used his powers to say, make it so. And by the way, that would also make President Trump a great hero who would not only be saving our country, saving countless lives, saving our economy, but, think ahead a couple of weeks. It would only be a very short time before those little throwaway devices would be distributed worldwide. And literally, our president would be saving humanity,
the world,
and world economy.
So it's almost worth an X Prize kind of thing as well. I mean, for the president to say, look, we're going to offer, $500 million or $1 billion, whatever it is, to the company that can come up with this accurately the quickest. If you do it by this date, it's worth X number of dollars. And being able to have everybody do it, not only just because of what, I would assume the government would pay for all of these things and send them all out. So they're going to be making money throughout the globe, but also that added incentive. And it would really also highlight the capitalist system over every other system. I think this is a genius idea. And I hope the president looks at it, because this is exactly the kind of stuff he likes.
This is exactly the stuff he likes. And as I say, the article, which people can access at howtostopthevirus.com, that'll take you right to the article on the Epoch Times. And the folks at the Epoch Times think that this is brilliant, too. But what we have to do, that's you and me and your listeners, we have to very, very rapidly give this idea traction in the media, on Twitter. We have to give it traction. We have to get this to all the Twitter leaders who have the millions and millions of followers. We got to give this traction, and then those people who are ready to talk to the president, they will talk to the president. And as I say, all he has to do is say, make it so, like Captain Picard on Star Trek, and it'll happen. You mentioned a test now that can be analyzed in 2.5 hours. One was just approved in Europe that can be analyzed in 30 minutes, and our own FDA just approved a test that can be analyzed in 15 minutes. So the point is, all you have to do is say, okay, now stick it in a little device that, we can mass produce, people can use at home, and then throw away, and we're done. Literally, we would kill the virus and save the economy simultaneously. And again, I think our president would go down in history as a great hero.
All right. So I'm going to tweet this out. We're posting it at glennbeck.com. We're tweeting it. I'll Facebook it. Just share it with all of your friends, and make sure you share it with the president as well. Make sure you attach the President Trump to all of the tweets and everything else you're sending out.